Hello, Notre Dame fans. I'm joined by blueandgold.com recruiting expert Mike Singer. The reason why we are going live a couple hours earlier than we normally do is because this is a huge weekend for Notre Dame and recruiting. Mike, this has been a big buildup for a long time. The Irish staff has certainly targeted the USC game as a day to showcase the program. I'm going to ask you an obvious question right off the bat that all of our recruiting fans seem to always ask is commitment watch. Who amongst this huge visitor group, we know of 37 guys, right? I think, but who's the most likely to commit?
Wow. Yeah, it's a loaded question. I'll give the name that probably Notre Dame fans are looking at the most right now. But, for a lot of the 22s, some of those guys have decision dates set for All American Bowl or sometime in December, something like that, Greg. A lot of the 23s, I don't know about anything too, right in the immediate future. But the one guy that I it's like I can believe I'm saying it, but at the same time, it's kind of crazy. It's Billy Schroth,
Yeah.
the big time offensive lineman from Wisconsin, an area, Greg, that
Yeah.
very well.
Fond du Lac. So that would be about an hour, 10 hour, 15 minutes north of Milwaukee.
Yeah. And Greg, you're a Milwaukee guy. So yeah, Schroth, the number 125 player in the country, number 4 offensive guard, someone who I'll be honest with our listeners and viewers, I had a Rivals Futurecast pick in for him to land at Notre Dame last summer. I had commitment articles ready to go. I mean, like commitment graphics, everything was ready to go, and I was ready for that commitment. And each week, month goes by, and it's like, all right, he the plan for him was like, I'm just gonna wait this thing out and take my visits whenever that dead period lifts due to the pandemic. So Schroth waited it out, took officials to Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. And then the feeling after the visits was, all right, he was just gonna pop to Notre Dame after he finally got to get back on campus. And then the tide turned towards looking like he was going to commit to Wisconsin, the school that, look, Notre Dame hasn't signed a player from Wisconsin in 20 years for a couple of reasons, in my opinion. One, it's not a talent deep state, which I know you can touch on, Greg, and the other being Wisconsin locks up all those kids. Notre Dame went after 3 Wisconsin linemen. One they missed out on. One, just the communication fell apart, and then the other is Schroth. The other 2 offensive linemen, Joe Brunner, committed Wisconsin. John Hinsman,
Carson
Joe
Hinsman.
Brunner, Carson Hinsman.
Yeah.
Thank you. John Hinsman's his dad. Great guy. Carson Hinsman down to Ohio State, Wisconsin. So, and so then you got Schroth, and now with him visiting, we've reported at blueandgold.com, he will be on campus this weekend. And you can check out the full offensive visitor breakdown at blueandgold.com Friday morning. I'll have that up. It's very much looking like it's swung back into Notre Dame's favor. It's been one of the crazier recruitments I've covered, Greg, in just these twists and turns of like one end of the spectrum to the other end, back to this end of like where he's leaning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not been a McDonald's bag recruitment or, he signed with one school, then flipped to another school. And then, it hasn't been one of those like crazy deep South recruitments, but
Yeah.
again, with it being super strong Notre Dame, back to everyone thinking it's Wisconsin. I mean, when you see these recruiting experts put in 3 or 4 predictions for one kid, like that's when you've got a crazy recruitment on hand. I've only put in one prediction. That was Notre Dame. I will stand by it.
Well, make sure you hit like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll take questions a little bit later in the show. Of course, we're always for sale. Feel free to drop a super chat. We're more than happy to answer your question. Mike, the other big news of the week is that Notre Dame will be hosting a 5-star commit to LSU who happens to be at a position everyone wants to know about as quarterback. Tell us about it.
Yeah, first of all, he's a heck of a player. He's not the tallest guy in the world, but height is not as important as it was, and we can kind of get into that discussion at a different point. But first of all, heck of a player. I got to see him over the summer. And of course, at that point, I was not really focused on him a whole lot. I was more focused on Steve Angeli. There's 4 quarterbacks at the Future 50 down in Bradenton, Florida IMG Academy. This was the middle of June. I thought Howard and Angeli were the best 2 there. This kid throwing the ball, I mean, he's special. He's a 5-star talent. So look, I mean, Ed Orgeron in that program down at LSU, it's I don't want to call it a dumpster fire because they just won a national championship 2 years ago, but
Yeah.
disarray maybe. I don't know. The just LSU athletics is just in a really interesting place. So
But their
Howard.
recruiting could be completely reinvigorated by a good hire. And
Oh, yeah, that's something I'll touch on in a second, Greg, when you talk about Notre Dame's chances to flip Howard. But, look, from what I had been told by sources, Howard like initiated some of this with Notre Dame.
mm,
This is something that he wanted. Like he wanted to, again, from what I'm told, he wanted to be recruited by Notre Dame. And I know some fans will be like, well, that must mean Reese and Kelly are idiots and don't know what they're doing. And like, look, I can't think that they were expecting that Walker Howard, who's a LSU legacy, his dad played quarterback there about just a little under 30 years ago. I can't imagine anyone thought he would be looking around, but here we are with the coaching turmoil there. But like you mentioned, Greg, um, a new hire could come in, especially if it's someone like Joe Brady, if he wants to get back in the college ranks. He's with the, I believe, Panthers now. He was the LSU offensive coordinator when the Tigers won the championship in 2019. If he comes back, you've got to think that LSU, can kind of be galvanized with him. So yeah, taking an official visit this weekend to Notre Dame. He was going to unofficially visit for the Cincinnati game. That visit got canceled because he unfortunately broke a bone in his leg the night before. So actually ended up visiting LSU the same day that he was going to visit Notre Dame. So Notre Dame worked on him, got him back on campus, and he's actually been here before. It was a couple years ago, I want to say, for a camp or sightseeing just a few years ago. So yeah, pretty big news.
yeah.
Officially visiting Notre Dame, 5-star. A little bit of a ramble there. Sorry about that, but number 26 overall player in the country, number 2 pro style quarterback. Pretty big news, Greg.
One of the more intriguing names on the list is an athlete from Utah named Carson Tabarachi. What do you know about him? This feels like a Notre Dame keeping their eyes open to late blooming type of targets.
That's absolutely it. To me, this is a Brian Polian special. Like Polian, in just a few years of covering Notre Dame football recruiting, he seems to find a guy, and it's kind of his guy. Like Ramon Henderson, Polian loved him from California. That's the one that comes to mind for me. And yeah, Tabarachi. He doesn't have a specific position. You see him running the football here. He could play a Tommy Tremble type role as an H-back or a tight end or a linebacker. This kid, but Polian wants him because he's going to help out on special teams. He is just a big time athlete with some good bloodlines. His father was a hockey player, I believe a goalie back in the day. So heck of an athlete. His younger brother's a really good football player too, from what I hear. Super productive. Just everything about this young man is impressive on and off the football field. As far as his recruitment goes, Greg, um, Utah is tough to beat in the state. I believe Ohio State is lurking in the mix. I know they've offered, don't know about the official visit scheduled to there, but right now I think it looks like Notre Dame and Utah as the 2 main schools to watch. Again, the Utes are tough to beat for in-state prospects, but Notre Dame here, it's a school he really likes. Irish staff saw him over the summer at a camp and they loved what they saw.
Another player I want to ask you about, Mike, Amorion Walker. It's an opportunity for Notre Dame to turn. I mean, he's been committed to Notre Dame for a while, right? But just kind of solidify that maybe.
Oh man, I don't know if that one's gonna be solidified until he signs on the dotted line, Greg. Amorion Walker, number 49, wide receiver in the country, high 3-star prospect per Rivals, been committed to Notre Dame since March. Love this kid on tape. Like he's got 11 catches as a senior so far. 5 of them is for touchdowns. Like he is
Wow.
a big play guy. Like if he's catching the ball, it's probably going for a touchdown. This has been another one of these wild recruitments. Again, committed to Notre Dame in March. Hadn't seen campus at that point. Visited LSU and Alabama for camps in early June with his high school teammates. Got offers from both programs. Still hadn't had an offer. Still hadn't visited Notre Dame at that point. And then took his official visit to Notre Dame in late June. Everything seemed like it was going really well. Walker was just going to be solid with Notre Dame. Then he takes a visit to Michigan at the end of July and another visit to Michigan in September, and then is spotted with Arch Manning at I believe it was an Alabama game. The Notre Dame staff they haven't given up. They haven't been like, you know what, we don't want to battle for this. If you're going to visit other schools, well, forget about you. Then no, staff loves this kid's talent, want him in the class, so they're battling. Obviously, they don't want a commit to go visit other schools, but this is an Under Armour All-American prospect with big-time offers at both sides of the ball. So he is continuing to be a guy that the Irish staff wants badly, and he's going to be on campus this weekend. He told me that earlier this week. So big news there, Notre Dame getting him back. Like right now, he's been to Michigan twice and Notre Dame
Yeah.
once. I mean, everyone thinks he's flipping to Michigan, but that's just not what I've been hearing from my sources. Irish staff, again, from what I'm told, is just been kind of cautiously optimistic that they'll be able to keep him in the class. So this weekend will go a long way to making that true.
Just to give our viewers an idea, we're still talking about just the class of 2022 and the targets on offense. The list is, I counted 37 on your message board post, Mike, and there's going to be more unofficial visitors that show up.
Oh,
Those are
Greg,
just the major targets.
Greg, I just today's just been so crazy. I just haven't even been able to get to it. There's a ton. Greg, we could do a full video on the 2025
Yeah.
visitors. I am not joking. Like Ryan Montgomery is a 2025 quarterback with P5 offers already at Michigan, Penn State, others. We're not even going to get close to I don't even think we're
Yeah.
going to talk about the 2024 quarterbacks.
No,
So
no, we
someone
kept it to
please
2020.
drop us a super chat so you make me answer that. I really want to talk about the 2024 QBs visiting, but we do have a lot of guys to talk about. Yeah, we haven't even touched on the 2022, and there's 5 stars on campus.
Yeah.
It's quite the weekend.
Well, one offensive lineman I personally think is outstanding is Emil Wagner. What's the feel on his recruitment? It just seems like no one's ever had a great grasp on that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Kentucky seems to be the leader right now. His brother was hired on the Wildcat staff as a I don't know, grad assistant analyst, something to that effect. And I believe his brother played at Kentucky as well. So it's going to be either Kentucky, Notre Dame, or Ohio State, in my opinion. I mean, this kid lives so close to Columbus. But for whatever reason, like when everyone thought when he got the offer from Ohio State, everyone thought he was going to land with the Buckeyes. But for whatever reason, that's just not been the case. It's kind of one of those situations where, like, man, if he was going to go to Ohio State, you think he'd have committed already. So I think it's going to end up being Kentucky or Notre Dame. This visit will be big. He had a great official visit over the summer. He should be deciding later this year. A lot of these kids, Greg, are doing the summer official visits and then doing unofficial visits to their top schools' games. And that's something that Wagner's doing. So he's visited Ohio State. He's visited Kentucky. He's visited Penn State, another school that's in the mix. And now he's got Notre Dame.
I'll just answer a question. I know when they answer this one from Crazy Boy Zach Rice. Notre Dame is that we're not expecting that to turn Notre Dame's way. So let's switch our focus to the defensive side of the ball in the class of 2022. Another 5-star on campus, Xavier Wankba from Iowa. This is a huge visit for Notre Dame.
Yeah, number 14 overall player in the country, number 1 safety. I just talked about guys taking official visits in June and then game day unofficial. Same thing for him. He's got a top 3 of Iowa, Ohio State, and Notre Dame took those OVs to the Fighting Irish's campus, and then the Buckeyes, and then Iowa. He actually, I mean, he is so close. He visited there a couple times over the summer, and and then took his official visit to the Hawkeyes campus October 9th for the Penn State game. For a while, Greg, it was interesting. Those are the three schools everyone's been talking about for a while. Texas A&M had been in the mix, but it was really Iowa, Ohio State, Notre Dame. And the feeling was that in order, it was Ohio State, Notre Dame, Iowa. Now it's flipped. Iowa seems to be the leader, followed by Notre Dame, Ohio State being third. And he will visit, of course, Notre Dame this weekend and then Ohio State next weekend. Um, right now I would give the edge to Iowa. I think man, it's tough for Notre Dame. They're going into states like Utah and Iowa and Wisconsin for these top players where it's tough to pull those kids out of there. But Notre Dame's a national recruiting brand, and that's one of the few schools in the country that can go into some of these backyards and win these recruitments. It's going to be tough for Notre Dame to win this one. I think they have a very good chance, even if Iowa leads right now. I mean, heck, I've heard people say that they still think Ohio State's the leader. I mean, there's much more movement to be had. He's going to decide his commitment. I believe it's December 8th. So, much more movement to be had, and Notre Dame will be able to, make up some ground potentially this weekend.
We have a super chat in, so I want to get to that right away, if that's okay, Mike.
I love
From
it.
Triple Deck Po, he asks, how much does Dante Moore influence this recruitment? He's talking about 2024 quarterback CJ Carr, who is the grandson of Michigan coach Lloyd Carr. He says, how much does how much does he influence this recruitment? This seems like a battle between Notre Dame and Michigan. So where do you think that goes? It's obviously
Uh,
early.
yeah, I don't know how much. I've seen people say, well, if Dante Moore picks Michigan, does CJ Carr not go there? I mean, I'm not going to personally speculate on that. Um, trickle triple deck. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I ask CJ Carr that, what's he gonna say? He's gonna say you don't like. I don't. That's a lot of speculation to me. But I'm very glad you mentioned CJ Carr. It's one of those 2024 quarterbacks
Yeah.
I wanted to sneak in. And I guess since we're talking about him, he's visiting Notre Dame this weekend. Julian Sayin, another four-star QB, and Rivals hasn't ranked many players, and I think it's just 100 so far in the 2024 class. Sayin and Carr, a couple of them who have been ranked. They're four-star prospects. I don't think they've handed out any 5 stars yet, if I'm not mistaken, Greg.
Mhm.
But both players who potential 5 stars. I mean, oh, they're so good. Carr camped at Notre Dame for Irish Invasion. Notre Dame staff loved him, offered him then. Saying they offered a day before he was the first offer in 2024 at quarterback. He visited Notre Dame late June. Dad's a big Notre Dame fan from what I hear. They're going to be on campus this weekend. So, man, Greg, quarterback recruiting is so
It's
interesting
gotten
right
very
now.
interesting. Yeah.
I mean, 2022 is huge. 2020, like what happens Walker Howard and Devin Brown, maybe USC commit, maybe I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. 2023, there's so many guys on the board. 2024, there's already 3 offers out. Yeah, I'm loving it, Greg. It's exciting.
Let's swing back to kids that we know are old enough to drive. Two more. I got a couple defensive line targets out from the West Coast or the western part of the United States. Hero Kanu and Anthony Lucas. Where do you feel Notre Dame stands with those guys? They're both expected on campus this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Kanu, number 87 player in the country, number 8 defensive tackle. It's an official visit. So he took some unofficials over the summer, and then all of these in the fall that he's taken are officials. So it's kind of flip flop from some of the other guys. Oklahoma, he was just at. He's got Notre Dame this weekend, Georgia, LSU, some of the other contenders. Very interesting prospect, Greg. From the same organization in Europe that Notre Dame got Alexander Ahrensberger from. He's been playing in Southern California for a couple now. Actually, less maybe just a little over a year.
Mhm.
But yeah, he got his Notre Dame offer over the summer. Set up a visit to campus a couple of weeks later. Seems to be really interested in Notre Dame. He is a wild. Like I heard not too long ago that LSU was looking good in the recruitment, and I hear he's taking an official there in a few weeks. But Greg, they don't have a head coach, so
Yeah.
I don't know what happens there. Can you really commit to It's happened. Can you commit to a school that doesn't have a head coach? Again, it's happened, but I don't know if
Yeah.
with a player of his stature, and it's not a backyard school for him. So I totally wild card recruitment. And then you mentioned Anthony Lucas, number 80 player in the country, number 7 strong side defensive end. He's another wild card. His dad went to the University of Miami. Hurricanes are a top school for him. Notre Dame, ever since Marcus Freeman was hired, has been a real dark horse in the recruitment. And Mike Elson's done a phenomenal job. But I feel like when Freeman was hired, it gave the Irish more of a boost. They had multiple coaches that were really connecting with him at that point, Elston and Freeman. Chad Bowden's done a great job as well. He took his officials over the summer, unofficials now. He did Miami in September. He's got Notre Dame this weekend. Just thinking off the top of my head, I think it's Alabama November 6th. I want to say they play LSU that weekend. He's got a top 7. Notre Dame's in it, along with some of the other schools I mentioned. He's probably going to be a December, January commitment when he announces. A lot of these kids announcing in January sign in December now,
Mm.
with the early period. So Lucas, Kanu, Wonkba, 3 monster names for Notre Dame.
Please hit like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, we're going to take questions in a little bit once we get through the main players on the list. Drop us a super chat. We're for sale. We'll answer your question or just ask a question. We'll try to get to it. Let's switch to 2023, Mike, and the highest ranked nationally prospect visiting Notre Dame this weekend, Caden Proctor, the teammate of Xavier Wonkba, a big-time offensive tackle, ranked 5th overall nationally and the #1 offensive tackle in the class of 2023.
So Wonkba's top 3 looks like it is Iowa, Notre Dame, Ohio State. I think Proctor's top 3 is probably the same. Like, I think he loves all 3 of those schools. And I think Notre Dame leads right now for Proctor. He hasn't said so publicly. That's just kind of been my gut feeling. The number 5 player in the 2023 class, #1 offensive tackle, great relationship with the Notre Dame coaching staff. Notre Dame went out and saw him play. His school played against Eli Raridan before the Florida State game that Friday. That game was on Monday or Sunday. So they saw him play that Friday and loved them. The coaching staff of Notre Dame, from what I hear, can't be more high on Caden Proctor. His visit this weekend will be big. He took an unofficial in June, seeing a game day. And then I think he would be back on campus for some kind of junior day or Irish Echoes or something like that in December. Follow the visits, Greg. That's my mantra.
Yep.
Caden Proctor taking 2 visits to Notre Dame's not the easiest place to get to from Iowa. So this is something you love to see if you're a Notre Dame fan.
We should see some movement on running back recruiting in the class of 2023. The Irish are hosting, 3 big-time targets this weekend?
Yeah, this is really interesting. So they have, basically, their 4 biggest running back recruits in the 23 class. Unless I'm really forgetting somebody. You got Cedric Irvin Jr., who's committed to the Fighting Irish, top 100 player from Miami. Of course, his dad, Cedric Irvin Sr., was a baller for Michigan State at that position back in the 90s. So he's going to be on campus. Justice Haynes, the #1 running back recruit in 2023, he's going to be on campus. Some video I shot here from seeing him earlier this season, battling through injury and had a great game. Jaden Lamar, who is another 4-star running back. He's the number 221 player in the country, number 10 tailback. He's going to be on campus. Caden Fegan, who's visited Notre Dame more than I can count at this point. He's a 4-star running back. Look at that size, Greg. I know he's not playing great competition, but the comp is anytime you have a running back over 6'3" and just that massive. It's Brandon Jacobs for me. Like that, it was one of my favorite running backs growing up. Sorry if I'm making anyone feel old when I say that, but I love watching this kid play football. I think he's visited Notre Dame once or twice already this fall and visited three or 4 times over the summer. So he's getting close to double-digit visits. So Notre Dame is probably going to take 2 running backs in the 2023 class. And between the 4 visiting, I think that you're going to have 2 of these guys end up signing with Notre Dame.
I don't know how college coaches even evaluate this kid. That's why they're way smarter at football than I am.
Well,
He is so much bigger and faster than everyone else who's playing.
They had him on campus. Like I said, he visited a few times over the summer, one of those being for a camp. And they really liked what they saw from him in mid-June and for a camp, and then offered him in late July when he came on campus for the barbecue cookout. Hard to evaluate, but like I always say, Greg, the more you work with me, the more you'll hear me say this. Like, when you're playing this kind of competition, what should you do? Absolutely dominate, and that's what it looks like he does.
We have a super chat from Brandon, one of our most loyal listeners. He says, with
Yeah,
such a massive and important recruiting weekend, do you know of any special plans or events that the staff has for this group or any individual targets?
man, Brandon, appreciate the question. He's also a member of our blueandgold.com message board. So really appreciate you, my man. I'll just be honest with you. It's been a struggle enough for me to just confirm who is visiting, let
Yeah.
alone what they're doing. Um, no, nothing. I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is dual sport kids, like Drake Bowen when he visited for the Cincinnati game. That's the in-state linebacker in the 2023 class. Oh, look at that, Greg, popping on. You're ready for it.
I've got plenty
Um,
of video, dude.
yeah, like he met with the baseball staff. Believe he watched practice. So it wouldn't surprise me if he met with Link Jarrett's staff. But I believe next weekend when he visits, yet again, is going to be more when he has more. It's going to be a little bit more focused on baseball, and then before the football game, Anthony Lucas is another two sport guy. You know, I have a picture of him I tweeted out today where it's a side by side of him on his visit in June, where he's in the Notre Dame football jersey and then in the baseball uni as well. So that's the one thing that comes to mind is maybe using the baseball staff for some of this stuff. But otherwise, Brandon, yeah, just been working on who the heck is visiting, but not so much what anything special, but we'll certainly have that. Brandon, you know it, gold standard, blueandgold.com, late morning or early afternoon. We'll have that up.
Well, we might as well stick with the defensive targets in the class of 2023 since Drake Bowen is obviously one of the most important ones on campus. Mike, another one you just saw in Las Vegas last weekend, Justin Rhett. Tell me about him, and is that an early commit candidate? What do you think?
Ooh, ooh. It certainly looked like that over the summer. I mean, I'll be actually posting once we get done with this show, Greg. I'll finish up my article working on him, writing on him, previewing this visit this weekend. It's actually going to be his first college game he's ever been to. So
Really?
it'll be
Wow.
a special visit for him. Number 47 player in the country, number 7 cornerback. So physical, 6 foot, 190 pounds. I got a half of him playing. There was a near interception. It wasn't I mean, they were playing a triple option team and he was a cornerback, so there wasn't going to be a ton of footage of him. And I believe this play right here is on a punt return. But yeah, I like Notre Dame. I, he again, like I was talking about, he was looking like an early commit candidate back in June. He visited for Irish Invasion. Notre Dame shot to the top of his recruitment, but he slowed down the process a little bit. I don't think he would commit like this weekend.
Mhm.
Would it absolutely shock me? No, not expecting it though. Notre Dame is in a really good position for some of these linebackers. Malik Muhammad, Christian Gray. Muhammad is a big time top 100 player from Dallas South Oak Cliff High School. Christian Gray from St. Louis de Smet, another 4-star guy. Those two, Justin Rhett, AJ Harris, borderline 5-star guy in 2023. I just had an
Yeah.
article at him at blueandgold.com. Make sure you guys go check that out. His father's a big Notre Dame fan.
Mhm.
Man, I've just seen since I started covering Notre Dame, my first day was May 1st, 2019. I have seen a steady trend upwards in defensive back recruiting. It's been really impressive.
A couple more important targets, Ryan Yates and then Luke Montgomery, two guys who are also nationally ranked from the 2023 class will be on campus.
There's another big corner target, highly ranked that Notre Dame's in good position for. Great footage here of Yates from our Tyler Horka, who shot him in
Mhm.
late August. Number 45 player in the country, number 6 corner. What I'm loving from this Notre Dame staff on both sides of the ball is basically every one of these guys we've talked about. I'm looking down the list has, except for Tabarachi, because they just offered him a few weeks ago,
Right.
visited Notre Dame over the summer. That's huge that they got all of their top guys basically to visit over the summer, and that these are return visits, and then they can get them on campus a third time. in the offseason. So Yates will be tough to pull out of Texas, but they certainly have a good chance. Again, follow the visits. This is his second time on campus.
You want to get some questions?
Let's do it. What do you guys got for me?
Well, I just want to shout out to Jojo Panada. He asked about Justin Rhett and the commitment watch, and we just addressed that. But then Michael asked, what's the latest intel on cornerback target A.J. Harris? I know you just touched upon him, but I'll just ask you, I mean, you mentioned his dad is a fan, and I mean, Notre Dame going to Phoenix City, Alabama to get a potential 5-star prospect. That would be another level for Notre Dame.
Yeah, yeah. So I would highly recommend checking out that story. Really goes in depth, kind of everything you need to know. But a snippet is that the kid was born in, I want to say it was Riverside, California,
Mm-hmm.
moved to Germany. His father's in the military, so based out in Germany, lived there until he was 9, and then moved to Columbus, Georgia, so in the same area as Phoenix City, Alabama. So he's not like a born and bred guy in the South.
Yeah,
His
good
dad's
point.
from Gary, Indiana, grew up a Notre Dame fan. They still have a ton of family. Like, I've already reported at blueandgold.com, and it's in the article as well. He's expected to visit Notre Dame November 20th. I want to say that's the Georgia Tech game
Wow.
right before Thanksgiving. They're staying with family. I mean, a lot of family out there. So, I mean, when you're a kid from Phoenix City, Alabama, you've got offers from Georgia, Alabama, and Clemson, the 3 heavy hitters in that region. I mean, what? Clemson's the farthest of that group, and it's 2 hours from Phoenix City, maybe 2.5.
Yeah,
You
more
would
than
think,
that.
well, okay, closer to 3. It can't be that far because it's not that far from Atlanta. It's like a 2-hour drive. So, all right, maybe closer to 4.
I'm gonna Google Maps that while you
All
ramble.
right, all right. I'm gonna say 3 hours 45 minutes, but you're also looking this up in rush hour, so keep that in mind. Um, but yeah, so you would think a kid in that region would be destined for one of those 3 schools. Sorry, I got the sun is shining on me now. I got to close my blinds, but yeah, he's got some good Notre Dame connections. So keep an eye on him.
3 hours and 37 minutes without traffic. So not bad. I would have
Yeah,
actually gone more than that. So good for you. I'm pretty good with maps too, I must say. So
yeah, as well traveled as you are. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and you're only 27 years old. What do you know?
Hey, 28, 28.
28? Oh, good.
Greg, if you can pop on some film of a recruit, I'm gonna go close my blinds real quick. No one needs to see what I'm wearing under this
Well,
shirt.
we have a question about Walker Howard, so I'll
Pop it on.
roll some film. I actually just cut this the other day, and Mike, we should have mentioned that it's been reported, but his leg injury is not of the many months sitting out type. He's not
Right.
out a year. It's a break, but it's not a serious break. He's expected back within 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, he wants to play this season.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that's awesome.
So
It's
Steve
not something
Kerr
major.
asks, chances ND can flip Walker Howard. What do you think?
Man, Greg, let me ask you this: when do you think LSU would hire a head coach? Like, could they do it before National Signing Day? I don't know if Walker Howard took an official to LSU over the summer. If he did, he's going to be able to take another one because that's a new rule. If you have a head coaching change, kids can take a second official visit to that school. So regardless, he can take an official to LSU. So that's the big thing for me right now, is when can LSU hire a head coach? And then the other unknown is just how interested Walker Howard is. Follow the visits, right? He was going to take a visit and then got canceled. And then 2 weeks later is taking, or 3 weeks later is taking an official visit. So following the visit kind of looks good there, but like, is this just kind of sightseeing tour? He's never gone to a college game outside the state of Louisiana. So like, I don't know. So back to my original question, Greg, that I didn't let you answer is, I mean, when do you feel like LSU could actually make a hire?
I would think that they would want to have someone announce publicly the Monday after the final regular season game. I mean, because you're probably going to be taking a coach that is currently coaching for another program, so it'd be difficult to announce anything during the regular season. But certainly, you want to have your people looking around for candidates now, and you want to
Right.
announce that as soon as you can. Because Mike, to your point, I mean, the first National Sign Day, which is when most kids are now committing or signing, I should say. That's only what 3-4 weeks. I think it's a little earlier this year too. It's closer to the middle of December. It's not really
This
right.
15th.
Yeah, it's not right up on Christmas, so they got to move. I mean, so but I would think in a perfect world, LSU is having a Monday presser after their final Saturday game and making the announcement.
I mean, heck, I'd want to break that news. Yeah, ASAP. I mean, because
Yeah.
if you're that new
Oh,
coach,
and
you're
they wouldn't mind if it leaks out. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
right.
it's just gonna be hard to get. I mean, unless they're getting a coach that is not doing anything right now. I mean, so I mean, who knows? Maybe they hire a coach that's allowed to leave his current program and start fresh. But most of the time, you got to wait a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because if you're that LSU coach, Greg, your first call is Walker Howard. I
Yeah.
mean, heck, if that news breaks a week before, if I'm that coach, I'm having some of my people, whatever I can do to make it legal, or according to NCAA rules, or even bend it. If I'm reaching out to Walker Howard's people, like, you have got to do whatever you can to keep this kid in the fold, and he is an LSU legacy. So you would think that shouldn't be too difficult. I mean, he's been a guy who built this class up, as a quarterback commit recruiter. So it's going to be tough, but there's just that unknown of, Greg, Notre Dame is one of the few schools that can pull off this kind of recruiting when, like, think about Lorenzo Styles, grew up in Columbus. His dad played for the Buckeyes, and he says, nah, screw that. I'm going to play for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like Dion Colsey, SEC country, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, committed to Notre Dame twice. I mean, it's just one of those schools that if Walker Howard's not going to play at LSU, Notre Dame is one of the few schools that could pull it off. Yeah,
Well,
that's kind of my point there.
Notre Dame has certainly done a good job with their official visits over the last few years. They whatever show they put on, it's quite effective. So, next question, Matt Loss asks, any concern that having so many recruits at once could on campus, I guess he's saying, could actually be a detriment. Not going to complain, but so much top level talent visiting, worried they may not be able to focus on the key guys. That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. I've never personally been on a visit, so
Your
um,
basketball skills didn't get you on a tour of 5 official visits to D1 powerhouses, Mike?
I actually, you wouldn't think it if you looked at me now, but Greg, when I first started working with you I actually did look like a receiver. But
You
I
did.
did play receiver in high school, and I was invited on an official visit to Bethel College in Kansas, an NAIA
Oh,
program.
there you go.
They were going to cover $100 of my plane ticket. And then once I got there, they were going to take care of everything, but they could only provide $100 for my plane ticket to Bethel College. I still don't know where that is.
Well,
Maybe our
I'm looking
crack
that
staff is
up
looking
here
it
for
up, I
what you
guess.
got into for that.
So I did not end up taking that official visit, and decided I'm not good enough to play in the pros. I don't want to play in front of 200 people on a Saturday, so I'll just start my writing career. 6 months later, started with Rivals, got this shirt about 3 months after that, and here we are. So, anyways, what
I was
was
going to say
even the
Bethel, you
original
would have flown
question?
into Wichita, and if you want to go do that just to visit what you passed up on, Mike, you can go and cover Avery Johnson, the quarterback target for Notre Dame for 2023. Mays, Kansas is just a half hour away.
I was looking this fall to go to Wichita to see him. It was just very expensive to get out there. So yeah, $100 from Bethel College was not going to visit much when I was living in Tampa at the time. So, all right, what was the original question? Oh, the so many players. I don't know. It's kind of one of those, like, good problems to have if you want to look
Yeah.
at it like that. I mean, the game atmosphere is the big recruiting pitch, like, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, when these kids come in June, it's all about relationship building. So that's why you bring them in then, and then you bring them again in the fall, and then it's selling something different. And then maybe that third visit is the sit down. Let's talk about the serious business you committing. Um, and that's kind of like the long game. Someone like Carson Tabarachi, who they're kind of getting on late, it's a little bit expedited, but I will say this: the Notre Dame staff, from Kelly down to interns, recruiting office people, everybody, it's pretty well organized. Like,
Mhm.
there's blocks for, you're going to talk to this person, then this coach will be with them. So they do a good job organizing it. Maybe Kelly has a offensive meeting with the top 2022 guys from this point, and then he goes to defense and then offense on Saturday. So pretty well organized. And then with the official visitors, you get 48 hours. So if that kid comes in Saturday morning, he can stay until Monday morning. So they would have all Sunday to visit. Just depends on if that kid needs to get back to school, right away on Monday. So kind of getting off track there, but yeah, good problem to have, not a major concern.
All right, Mike. Well, I think you have a radio hit coming up. And so it is probably getting close to time for you to go. And I know you have a busy Sunday and a busy Monday and a busy Tuesday. Mike Singer, our blueandgold.com recruiting expert, will be burning the midnight oil, watching kids' reactions to their visit. Notre Dame with a huge visit weekend. Make sure you stay tuned to blueandgold.com for all the recruiting scoop. Hit like on our video, subscribe to our channel, and we're going to do a lot more of these in the coming weeks. So thank you for tuning in.